Howdy, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday Uncuckables. I'm Tim Wilms in the top right corner tonight here from my Melbourne studio.
Hello, Tim. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.
Who are you? And where are you?
We're doing our own introductions. We didn't get the memo. We're doing our own introductions. You go, Dave.
Okay, yeah. Hey there, Tim. Hey, everybody in the chat. It's good to be here. I should have brought my dog whistle, but I kept leaving it behind.
Yeah. You're down. you're on the bottom tonight.
Yeah. I just there's a different screen to what our chat to the actual what people can see. Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah. It's a shame I can't be on the far right, but I'll do what I can.
Zoom.
Well, Tim's on the far right tonight, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm James, by the way. Hello, I'm James. I'm a nationalist.
Sound like we're in a AN meeting, Australian Nationalists.
That's right.
Or
yeah.
AMP meeting, Australian Nationalists Proud. We're not anonymous.
It's true. It's true. We're very, very not anonymous. Hi, AFP.
I was going to say Asia. Whoa, could be. How many agencies do we have? There's AFP, ASIO. What is it? The Australian Signals Directorate. They can only spy on foreigners.
Let's just say hi to all the alphabet soup, hey, to be safe.
Yeah. They don't need to spy on us. They can just watch us every couple of evenings because we pretty much say everything we think anyway.
We talked about how Zoom, they were rerouting, or they were routing some calls through China, and apparently they've got a poor privacy record, but we just always operate by anything that we say or write on the internet is public knowledge.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, China know we hate their guts. You think I'm joking?
No, I'm laughing because I know you're not.
Yeah, that's it.
I hope that we can get a official rebuke from one of the CCP propaganda arms very shortly, because overnight they called Alan Jones a racist liar because he had to go at the Chinese government. And if they were like really super spies and could dig up dirt, probably they could come up with much worse things to say about Alan Jones.
I do find it interesting that they're playing the racism card. Like, they've done their research. Like, they know how to put a message forward in the West to further their propaganda. Because, like, this comes a week after Tedros, the terrorist in charge of it's Tedros, the terrorist in charge of the World Health Organization.
He sounds mighty.
The racism card. Yeah.
Dr. Ted, we termed him on the Unshackled today.
Okay, Dr. Ted the terrorist.
Yeah, Ted the Great Terror.
Well, we established last week here. Was it last week or last show? Because we do the Tuesday show now, that he's actually a black nationalist communist.
Yes. He's what is it? Nazbol.
Nazbol, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going with this. And the Chinese last week, they were saying that the Australian media was actually defaming them. But now they're trying to play the race card here. So, like, we all know that the Chinese don't give two hoots about racism, but they know how to present a message to a Western audience, and so that's why they're playing that.
I don't know if it's that they've done their research or just that their masters have been whispering in their ears and going, hey, just call them racist. They respond really well to that.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
They had their useful idiots out on the street at Melbourne back in Pissy Leaks Pete will know, formerly Peter V, when it was the Socialist Alternative in Melbourne protesting the racist China travel ban.
The racist thing for me is just such a nothing burger now. Like, it's really worn off. I've heard it. It's been directed at me enough times, and I've seen it directed at reasonable, sensible, normal people enough times that it's just amazing to me that it affects anyone enough to make them sort of cower or change their political perspective or disavow others. It's just crazy to me. Like, we should be well past that now. Everyone's a racist, and if you're not, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean you
right.
hate it.
Every time somebody calls me a racist, I gas them.
I don't think I've ever told this personal story before, but when this was way back in 2011, I expressed at a birthday party how much I liked Tommy Robinson and the English Defence League, and I got a text message the next day from a friend saying, "You're such a horrible racist. I can't be around people such as yourself."
For supporting Tommy Robinson.
Yes.
Oh God, there's some lightweights out there, aren't there?
But that was before he hadn't said, I think, 1,000 times that he wasn't a racist, a homophobe, or anything like that.
He's just looking out for, what is it, British values or something? Yeah?
Liberal values, liberal democratic values.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to those collapsing in a heap and being a thing of the past myself.
Hello to everyone in the chat tonight. We're on the Uncuckables YouTube channel, and you called it, when I told you about it, James, a Zoom attack, that I was able to work out how to schedule it in advance on YouTube and then get the streaming software to in sync, and so we can share out the link in advance.
Yeah, man, you're upskilling. The tech is improving, ever improving. I think we've moved from the boomer tech to the Zoom tech.
The only one who's back in Boomerland is Dave.
Oh, look at that. See, you had a moment to take a compliment and you turned it into an opportunity to shit on poor old Dave. Tim.
Look, I have no ego attached to my ability with tech.
You know how to work a piano? You're sweet.
Yeah, I know when I'm behind. And, like, when it comes to tech, I'm like the English cricket team. Like, if I'm behind, I give up.
What is your flat made of? Is that like asbestos house? That's what it looks like behind you.
Oh, yes, it's a shed at the back. It's where I have my piano.
So so Dave's on the bottom tonight, and he's a boomer when it comes to tech, and his house is made of asbestos. I think angling for a roasting of Dave tonight. Do you want me to pile on as well?
Go for it, guys. Go for it.
I got nothing. I like Dave.
It's a nice little shed out the back here. Basically means I can shut off the door and I don't bug too many people when I play piano. So, because I tend to play a little bit loud. Bit of a basher.
Piano basher.
Yeah, that's it. And so we're calling. Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, please join us on Entropy, the YouTube enhanced software. You should all know how it works now. You can ask us a question. It operates AMA rules. You can ask us anything about ourselves or about stuff that's happening. I did an AMA on Wilms Front on Monday, had some interesting questions. And also you can send through super chat donations in the fiat government-backed currency of your choice.
Very nicely done. So tonight, is our episode called Where We Were Right About Everything?
Yeah, we predicted the news because we said
I preferred We Were Right About Everything.
Because it took a Washington Post article, and I'll bring it up on the screen here because we've got this. This is another thing, a Zoom sharing technology here.
Zoomers on Zoom. Hey.
Oh,
I see it.
Email. State Department cables warned of safety issues at Wuhan lab studying bat coronavirus. 2 years before the novel coronavirus pandemic upended the world, U.S. Embassy officials visited a Chinese research facility in the city of Wuhan several times and sent 2 official warnings back to Washington about inadequate safety at the lab, which was conducting risky studies on coronavirus from bats. The cables have fueled discussion inside the US government about whether this or another Wuhan lab was the source of the virus, even though conclusive proof has yet to emerge.
Wow. Yeah,
well, I heard Trump asked about this today. outside the White House or wherever he was, and his answer was, it was one of those wonderful Trumpisms where he neither confirmed nor denied anything, but he's like, we're going to take a close look at that. We're aware and we're not happy. Not happy.
Yeah, good on him. I love it how the definition of fake news / conspiracy theory is basically a news story that the mainstream media hasn't reported on yet.
But YouTube has been talking about for months or years.
Does that mean that since it's been reported by the Washington Post, one of the, what do they say, accredited, authoritative newspapers, I'll bet 3 months later, does that mean we're allowed to talk about it on YouTube and Facebook now?
I'd say if we talk about it, it'll still be fake news. Yeah.
It automatically just becomes fake news, because there's some people, even if they know deep down that what we're saying is right or they agree with us, they still can't bring themselves to give us any credit.
Yeah. Those people are dead to me.
But it shows how just how spiteful and contrarian they are.
Yeah, or how normie they are, really, and they're trying. A lot of folks, are trying to be part of some radical alt media movement, but they're really just they're just afraid, to go out on a limb. And you got to go out on a limb and have some conviction and speak some truth. And this is the thing: is it's like, when we didn't predict anything, we just assessed things as truthfully and as rationally as we could, and drew our own observations and in some cases conclusions. Normal smart people can do this when you're not fully propagandized and when you're not afraid of saying something that's politically incorrect or goes off the plantation. And clearly we're way beyond that at Uncuckables. We live off the plantation. So yeah, we didn't predict anything. We just were looking at the evidence, looking at different commentators and going, yeah, this makes sense. But yeah, as Dave rightly says, it's the mainstream media, their whole shtick is the controlled narrative. And occasionally they get busted lying to us or withholding, and then they have to, divert. They have to change course. But they're more, sort of being swept downstream by the bigger powers that be and the narrative that they're allowed to have. Whereas we're free out here. We're able to assess things freely and without being told what to do. We haven't taken the ticket, as it were. And I think some of us at times have been offered certain tickets, but if we're more committed to the truth than, the shekels, we'll tell the truth and we'll be able to say what we want. And I love that freedom. I wouldn't give that up for anything.
It is great having that freedom. It gives you a freedom of conscience, a freedom of style, and a freedom just to look at patterns and just say, okay, I've got information here and I'm putting the pieces together in a certain order, and this is the conclusion I reach. Some of the foundational reading I did when I was sort of in my late teens, early 20s was very normy, but I read a lot of Tom Clancy. And it introduced me to the idea that, like, if you're an analyst for like a government sort of intelligence agency, like I sometimes like to think of myself as thinking like that, but like I'm not part of the agency. Basically, you have bits of information, and depending on which way you want to sort of frame the information, which order you want to put the information into, you can reach different conclusions. And they'll get half a dozen different guys to look at the information, give them a report, and that way they get 6 different conclusions, and that's how they get closest to the actual truth, basically. And so that's what we do. Like we listen to we listen to different guys' takes, we read different guys' takes, we look at the information, and everybody kind of has their own little angle on it. And then we all sort of reach our own slightly different conclusions and say it in a slightly different way. But between us, we're closer to the truth than the mainstream media, and we get there sooner than the mainstream media. Something I find interesting.
When you say we, it's not just us as well. It's like the community worldwide of alternative media observers. We're just part of a much bigger family of free agents who are exploring and analyzing.
Absolutely, it's like there's an alternative hive mind, which we the mainstream like to refer to what we talk about as alternative facts, but we are
alternative to news is another one.
Yeah.
I've heard.
Yeah. We are we're not controlled by the narrative, and so we're allowed to go there. It's amazing. I think it was a week ago, I saw a news article. It might have been 2 weeks ago. It was in the Guardian or the Sydney Morning Herald or the Age, and it was the conspiracy theories that you've got to watch out for, the internet conspiracy theories that you've got to watch out for. And so they were trying to lump the coronavirus was formed in a lab conspiracy theory, so-called conspiracy theory. They're trying to lump it with all of the others, like the TPG, not the TPG,
5G,
the 5G stuff, and a couple of the others. It's like they tried to put a whole bunch of crazy ones, and then they tried to lump the real one in there. Like that seemed to me to be a deliberate effort, just to that wasn't part of the narrative, so they just wanted to lump them all together. Yeah.
Well, that's the classic category error that they use deliberately to distract people. And again, it's like if they can put enough crazy ideas in a bag and then throw the truth in just to scare people, because a lot of people are really afraid of, really what it comes down to is the social reinforcement. If you're worried about what other people think of you, it's much, much harder to engage with outlandish ideas or conspiratorial ideas or things that are not normal. That's why we call the people who live by the mainstream narrative normies, because they're stuck in this cycle of accepting whatever's given to them in order to feel okay that they're not going to be turned on by the mob. They're not going to be ostracized and ridiculed. But, once you've had that happen to you a few times, you sort of get thick skin to it, and then you stop caring, and then you realize that it's a real favor when people ostracize you, because they're revealing themselves to be untrustworthy, untruthful, and the kind of people you don't really want to be around anyway. So it ends up saving you time. So I like it when it happens.
Like the worst thing that the Chinese are going to do to us, it seems, is call us racist. I mean, that's how often has that happened?
Yeah, that's right. We're pretty numb to it now, many of us.
Yeah. How does the standard response go? Oh, gee, guys, I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, that's right. Next, can we have a real conversation now?
We've got it's both a question and a super chat from Naughty Design. How on earth can we convince the cunts to move over to the alternative media cunts?
Just keep putting it out there.
And if you want to know what the mainstream media is going to say a few months from now.
Yeah. Yeah. My strategy is just to try to make sure that... Thank you very much
for that super chat, Naughty Design.
There's but basically I just try to get stuff out consistently. So like on XYZ, we always try to get something out between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning, so people know that they can go for some news, and we try to get the main article out in the morning. And the more that you report, the more that people will come to you, because they know that you're reliable. And so it's consistency, providing the content, making sure it's quality, and just keep plugging away, because there are ways to break the algorithm. It's why I take a lot of pride in. Well, one thing I do have ego attached to is my headlines.
They're pretty great.
They're insane.
I know that the algorithms get a few. I think they got your, what is it, fuck the Kurds one, and also Greta Thunberg, communist idiot.
Yeah, well, that cost me, but then you've got a dozen others which pay off. So,
well, it's like Ahmet Erdogan, the founder of Atlantic Records, used to say when asked, how do you make a hit? He says, well, you make 10 records and throw them at a wall and see which one sticks. It's like that with the headlines.
Yeah. You just keep slamming it out.
And you're right about the consistency. I mean, look how Uncuckables has grown as a channel, just from being consistently weekly for how many episodes have we got now?
Well, this is 61, and now we're consistently bi-weekly now as well. And myself and Dave,
and likewise with my show in the last couple of weeks, I've been much more consistently doing it almost daily, and it's going to be the same time every day now. And I've just seen in the last few days a huge growth in the rate that people are picking it up, picked a better time for my audience, pay attention to your analytics and to where your audience is and choose your times based on that. That seems to make a difference. But yeah, consistency is key. And that seems to be the secret of the success of guys like Nick Fuentes, just having the daily show, same time every day, just smash it out. Guys like Vox Day, just keep doing the same thing over and over. And it seems to work really well. But as far as actually convincing normies to watch alternative media, who fucking wants them? Like, they'll come groveling to us when the rest of it falls apart, because the truth wins in the end. And if we're closer to the truth, or we're continually pursuing truth in an honest fashion, eventually people are going to wake up, or the mainstream media will go bankrupt, the various platforms go bankrupt, and then they'll go, oh, where are we going to get our news? We have to try a little harder and find XYZ, find Unshackled, find Rationalised TV. So,
On that note, with convincing normies, I'm a big believer in breadcrumbs. You just lay out little bits of the truth. And being normies, like, not everybody's going to follow it, but there are people who will follow, and the ones who are going to make their way, they'll make their own path. So you just leave a little path for them. You plant a seed, and 6 months, a couple of years later, they'll come back. I've had a number of sort of friends who I've seen, like I haven't smashed people over the head with sledgehammers and that sort of stuff, but people sort of make their own way.
Metaphorically, you mean, with sledgehammers?
Yes.
You've done it literally?
Yeah. We've just got to clarify the disclaimer, because...
Yeah, he's not saying that he's never hit somebody over the head with a sledgehammer. He's saying that he's never metaphorically hit someone over the head with a sledgehammer. Which is...
Yes. That's exactly what I said.
Just to be clear. He's also not saying that he has hit anyone literally with a sledgehammer. That's another conversation.
Viva Anti-Bullying has just made a good point as well. You only need 10%. You basically need a small group of really committed people to change the course of a country.
I call it that 10% basically the Kata rule, because you can be hated by the overwhelming majority of the country, but he keeps getting re-elected every time in North Queensland, and so does his party at a state level.
Yeah, know your audience, know your people, target your message. Pick your times of day, like you were saying, Dave, for the written stuff, for the videos too. Yeah, know your audience and respond to the analytics is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Kata does all right for all that.
I've been enjoying getting my lunchtime Fox fix, and I don't mean Fox News. I mean
you're eating foxes.
Fox Higgins.
Shit, man, stuff's worse in Melbourne than I thought. You're out scavenging for urban foxes in the bins.
No, I ate you for lunch, James. That's what I meant.
All right, no more innuendos, Tim. But I'm glad you're enjoying. I'm glad you're enjoying my daytime show.
But as the audience know here, that I watch quite a bit of Sky News, but I'm now finding it just so repetitive with the coronavirus or COVID-19 coverage, and then you see the same Foxtel ads over and over again, because we saw what happens when they try to mix it up on Sky News. You might interview somebody like Blair Cottrell.
Yeah, we can't have that.
Because apparently that was due to they were trying to have too much content. They were trying to fill too much time with interesting shows.
And we had this intern, and he said Blair was a really cool dude, but the intern was totally wrong, so we've fired the intern now. Yeah.
They had an internal investigation into it, how he got into the studio to be interviewed.
How did he get in here? They're such fucking cowards. It's so transparent. It's like, who cares who you talk to? Honestly, just, this whole like disavowal thing that people do is so ridiculous. I just don't understand it, it's so weak.
You had an interesting show today where you were playing an Enoch Powell interview, and then it said stream suspended.
I disavow Enoch Powell. Well, YouTube does on my behalf. Yeah, it cut me off, and it said it said it was because it was copyrighted material, but I've never had that before. Like normally, it just afterwards will say it's demonetized. And this is a video that this is a video that I actually got from YouTube. So it's on YouTube. It's not contraband on YouTube, but apparently it's a copyrighted interview, and I was just playing a chunk of it, and it was highly topical, relevant stuff. Luckily, everything I really wanted the audience to hear Enoch say had already been said before they cut me off, and then I just had to stop the stream and restart. There was about 20 seconds of nothing, and then we were back on it. But yeah, do check it out, folks. It was a good discussion today, and some great questions and comments from the audience.
Excellent.
If YouTube was operating the Murray Franklin show, then they would have made sure to cut off before the Joker got to his last knock joke.
I'm sorry, I missed that, and then we needed the boom, but it didn't happen. You've got the instruments there, haven't you, Dave?
I need a drum kit next to my piano. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you just smash some piano keys next time.
Blah, blah.
Yeah. I've got a trombone actually. I've got one up in my vocal booth. I could go grab it. No, I was getting distracted. I'm sorry. That's entirely on me. But Shadow Quicksilver, who's a regular viewer of mine, was just letting us know that that God blessed him with a new used truck. Thank you, Jesus. So I'm glad to hear that, Shadow. And Shadow is an awesome guy to have around, because he's always reminding everyone to smash the thumbs up. So do that.
Okay, so if we're talking about other things that we've been right about, we were right about closing the borders, because when we compare the infection rates and the number of deaths both here in Australia and New Zealand compared to other parts of the world, we've done pretty well. And like the government closed the borders here later than we had suggested,
but just in enough time.
Yeah, and it's been for our benefit.
And Trade Minister Simon Birmingham has said they're pretty much going to be closed for the rest of the year. If you're planning an overseas trip, don't plan it until 2021. And there was an article that you wrote today on XYZ, Dave, where you celebrated. You've got the lizard one there.
That's one of the most amazing memes I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, coronavirus miracle, foreigners flee Australia.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not going to play that film clip, because that'll get us struck for copyright. The coronavirus is driving the biggest population decline in Australian history, with 300,000 tourists, temporary workers and students already departing this year, an exodus that threatens to deepen a consumer spending slump and hit the housing market. Oh, no.
Yeah, so there's so much just in that opening paragraph.
I hear this is analysis by former senior immigration department
get to him
official
in a moment.
Abdul Raziz.
Yeah, so we'll get to Abdul in a moment. So just looking at that first paragraph, the population increase in Australia has just seemed so irrepressible. Like there's been nothing that we can do to stop it. The government supposedly sets caps, and we always keep exceeding the cap. They're always lying to us about how many people are coming in. But all of a sudden, we've got a virus here all around the world, we've got people leaving the country. As much as 300,000 people leaving the country. That's the first time that's pretty much ever happened. And so I make the point as well, the property prices here in Australia, they're not worth what we pay for them. And personally, I'm not going to pay what they're asking for a property until the Ponzi scheme of bringing in hundreds of thousands of people every year to provide artificial demand for property. I'm not buying property until that finishes, because I want to buy property at its proper value. And what was the other aspect of it? Oh yeah, and so I actually made the point before we get to a bull as well. Basically, I made the point. If a nationalist party, if and when an Australian nationalist party gains power in Australia, one of the first things that we should do is basically just declare a health emergency. It can be for anything. It can be for coronavirus. Just say, okay, foreigners need to leave. And that first wave of remigration.
And there's a precedent for it now.
Yeah, that's it. That first wave of remigration will be voluntary.
Yeah, well, that's what the clip the controversial and illegal clip that I was playing today was Enoch Powell.
I thought I was saying the same. Okay,
it was Enoch Powell back in 75 or something like that, talking about the installation of incremental repatriation program, which would begin with removing the tax benefits for people who were sending money back home to their country of origin, to their families, and then ramping it up to eventually paying, in those days in 75, he was saying they would pay £1,000 a head for anyone who voluntarily would leave and go back to their country of origin. And so a family of 5, mother, father, 3 kids, would receive £5,000, which is equivalent today to 82,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
If that was the kind of thing look at how much money they're throwing at relief for the coronavirus, the stimulus packages. They can just come up with this money when they need to.
Yes.
So if people started treating the demographic change as an emergency, started recognizing nation as a real thing, as an important thing, as a necessary thing, then a government could theoretically create a program, come up with the money, and pay people to voluntarily leave, and then there's no coercion. It's a gentle coercion. It's a profitable one, and for a lot of people, for a lot of families, $82,000 is more than they live off, more than they make, and that's money that they can take and then go and immediately start working potentially back in their home country and make more money on top of that for the year. So a lot of people would respond to those incentives, and then Enoch Powell's suggestion was, let's start soft and gradually over 5 or 10 years incrementally increase the pressure, so that we don't have to get to the point where there's bloody race wars going on in the streets of London, and so that we can peacefully restore the British majority, the British sovereignty and the white supermajority of Britain. But obviously his suggestions were ignored. And now what he was suggesting was going to happen is beginning to happen. We're only seeing the start of it, only seeing the tip of the iceberg of the kind of social breakdown and conflict that occurs between all of the different factions and tribes, whether that's based on race or religion or political ideology. We can't all live together. We're not getting along.
Yes, on the XYZ, Mark Moncrief has actually written 2 articles on the subject of remigration, and making the case for paying people money. He's argued for just a flat $100,000 per person to remigrate.
Wow, that's generous.
Well, he's made the point that for $100 billion, you could get rid of it. You could you could encourage.
Come on, let's use some pleasant rhetoric here, David. Yeah. Don't say what you really think.
That's it. Go normie to you, David. Normie to you. $100 billion, a million. That could be 1 million people. I think the maths is right there. These days, $100 billion is not that much money, especially when you consider how much more debt we'd be in. It would be a good investment, and it would be a way to encourage people to remigrate and still maintain good relations in the world. Because you start deporting people, and there's going to be a lot of opposition. There's going to be the globalists are not going to take it. But
well, it's happened before, and it didn't go well.
Yes,
it didn't go well. It didn't go well for anyone.
Yeah, basically, it's a form of direct foreign aid rather than giving money to corrupt governments. You're giving it to people, and they're taking their money and the skills that they've learned here in Australia back to their country, and they leave. They still might have a chip on their shoulder that we're being bribed to leave, but it's not going to be as bad as we were forced to leave.
I'm not sure if you've been following I call it the e-British drama of the past week, where this British, if you can call her a patriot nationalist activist, Anne-Marie Waters. I only heard of her because Mark Collett shared her rant against Patriotic Alternative and the repatriation model of powers that you were just talking about, James. And she runs a what is that, alternative to Patriotic Alternative called For Britain.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds much more feminine, doesn't it?
Have you heard of that name before?
No, I haven't. Sounds very gentle and sweet.
But it's interesting that you only hear of the only time they are able to get any attention is when they attack somebody who they see that they want to bring down. That's the only way they're going to.
So what's the problem with Patriotic Alternative?
That it's an ethno-nationalist anti-Jewish group.
Oh, and what's her shtick? I thought you said she was a British nationalist. Sorry.
Well, that's what I was saying. Well, I'm not sure what she is, but she runs.
She's a Zionist shill posing as the British nationalist.
She claims that she doesn't get any funds from Mossad.
Well, you don't need money to shill. It's more about social approval for most people.
And then somebody did this hilarious mashup of her rant today, which was shared on Laura Towler's Telegram. Sorry, I'm digressing. I'm digressing.
I'd love to see that. Yeah. Well, but staying on the repatriation topic, what would also be an interesting possibility if this was to begin to happen, and I think for it to be a successful project, it would have to sort of happen from a lot of different countries at once. Basically all of the European nations would have to sort of, or most of them would have to participate in a similar program, and then it could be really successful and could potentially be really easy, and as you say, maintain good relations with a lot of these other countries, particularly the third world countries that people are being sent back to. But also, as part of it, there could be a program to entice Europeans to repatriate themselves, those who have moved out into the colonies, those who have moved around Europe, those who, and Hungary's already been doing this. Hungary's been creating tax incentives for Hungarians to come home and make families, make Hungarian babies. And this is something that would be a real positive too for a lot of people. Imagine if Britain and Ireland, for instance, started saying, "Listen, we'll make it really easy and either cheap through subsidy, or we'll pay you to return home if you have English or Irish heritage, and you're living in Australia, or you're living in America or Canada or whatever." And created a program to, rather than diminish the population by removing the immigrants, replace the immigrant population with natives. That could be a really interesting program to include in it as well.
I'm really glad you went on that. Like on the first bit, yes, it's entirely possible that this process of remigration could happen like coordinated, because the thought process that Australians are going through, like the recalculation is going all through the West. Like the reason that the coronavirus is like hitting Europe hard at the moment is because they have the same problem. They have the problem of open borders.
And also the Ponzi scheme, the cheap labor. I mean, that's why Northern Italy was the epicenter, because they had all those fly-in Chinese workers making the Milan fashion clothing.
Yes. So basically every one of these countries is going to be thinking exactly the same thing. They're going to be thinking what we're talking about here. On Italy, that's a really good point. Your second point there, James, about like ethnic Europeans, because I know a lot of Italians. I've taught a lot of Italians. Know some of them quite well, and they're Italian. Like what, like they have a different sense of what Australia is compared to people like myself, where like my British heritage goes back to last century. There's this tendency to think that Australia kind of started like when they got there, and that's why they sort of say only half mockingly, like, "Oh, we built this country," and like you meet a lot of Italians who are here, like Italians rather than so-called Australian Italians, and
Australians of Italian heritage, I guess you would say.
Yes.
So real Italian nationals with the accent and the hands and everything.
Yeah, and the reason that they're here, they say, "Look, I can't get a job in Italy."
I've met quite a few.
And you see how much they love Italy, and like they're still Italian, and if they could go back, I think they would.
Yeah, look, if there was a massive repatriation of Europe across the board, like if the whole EU thing collapses over the next few years, and all the countries return to a nationalist model, and start, saying, okay, we're going to, hopefully through peaceable means, incentivize, foreign immigrants and their families to return to their countries of origin. And we want to bring all of our European brothers and sisters back home. And if there was a program that would allow it, I would seriously consider taking my family back to either Ireland, which is my side of the family, or Poland, which is my wife's side of the family. So, I would really be keen. That would be really a great adventure to be part of rebuilding Europe. No,
Deanna in the chat actually made a really good point. The Italian diaspora held onto traditional values, unlike Italy. That is a common feature, like just of all the, like you hear the same feature with Greek migrants as well. This sort of remigration, there could be a return to traditional values. But I think the point that we're all making is that what's going on at the moment with the coronavirus outbreak is people are rediscovering the benefit of traditional values anyway.
Bieber Anti-Bullying and Deanna in the chat have said that Anne-Marie Waters, that for Britain it's the LGBT Zionist party, and that she's been around for a while, and shtick is anti-Islam.
It seems like I don't understand. Can you run through that again? That seems a weird mix. It's an LGBTQ nationalist, Zionist, anti-Muslim group. Is that what you're saying?
Let me guess. Are they stuck in 2014? They're saying, "Oh, we're against Islam because they hate Israel and they hate gay people."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like we thought. So it's just Zionist shills. Yeah. Like it's the controlled opposition, the fake nationalists. It's the same sort of types as Tommy Robinson.
It's important just to dwell on that just a little longer. Like the reason that we sort of make that distinction, because I got into one of my pathways into thinking like an ethno-nationalist was to be red-pilled by the way that Islam was able to gradually take over countries. Like when you look at, say, the demographics and the religion of Northern Africa, even a few hundred years ago compared to what it is now, of Turkey 500 years ago to what it is now, understanding how they put societal pressure and certain rules interspersed with like
apparently she is a lesbian herself.
Occasional periods of great violence where like you have big change and then you cement that with periods of long change. So that helped to train my mind to think in those terms, and then just understanding, okay, it's not just the bad immigrants, it's for like even if immigrants to your country are really, really great and make it a better place, if they're not of your people, they're going to change the country, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's right. It's just about, because this is exactly what I was talking about today on my show, that, everyone's tribal naturally, and whether those tribes form along ethnic lines, which has been the traditional sort of natural biological model, or whether they form along ideological lines, political, movements, or whatever it happens to be. People are tribal. People like to belong to a tribe. And when you're in a time of deprivation or scarcity or severe threat, the bigger and stronger your tribe is, the better. And yeah, as you say, when there's a demographic replacement happening, it may actually, it may start off fine. It may be good people coming in, and the change that occurs in the country may well be good for the immigrants. But if it's not good for the Indigenous Australians know all about this. If the demographic replacement is not necessarily good for them in the way that it is for the immigrants coming in, and so yeah, this is why nationalism is a model that I think best serves every group. If everyone's on board and we get these sort of globalist, internationalist, multi-culti folks out of the picture, because they're the ones who are actually bringing everyone down and corrupting and harming all cultures, and they're the ones who are actually ruining the beautiful diversity of the world. And something has to be done.
The West is just an idea. It's just dirt in the ground.
Yeah, that's why we make a distinction between the anti-Islam groups and genuine nationalist groups. It's normal to be red-pilled by Islam on race, but it's not normal to sort of find out about Islam and stay there. That's what makes it suspicious, because then, yeah, as you pointed out, James, when you sort of dived into more depth about Tommy Robinson, like there tends to be a pattern of these anti-Islam groups. Like it seems to be like a trap, or like a diversion, basically, just to catch people who should be on their way to understanding things from an ethno-nationalist point of view.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, yeah, what I think the architects of that controlled opposition are doing is presenting the thesis that Islam is the enemy of everyone, and that Islam, above all else, should be feared, and that the Muslims and their Stone Age religion are going to destroy any Western civilized liberal country. But every other group, racially, religiously, whatever, are fine. It's just Islam. They're sort of being painted as the major demon. But we're starting to see that actually there are aspects even of the Islamic religion that are far more tenable and stable in their traditionalism and in their intolerance. There's a model that we can learn from in the successful sort of the conquest that Islam has achieved through its total in-group preference and its total out-group intolerance. It's spreading incredibly fast around the world, and it will take over certain regions, and it has in the past taken.
It's not a building religion. Like, sure, you can sort of admire their traditional family structure and their conquering and wanting to basically survive, carry on their faith and their genes.
I didn't say I admire it, though. I just said it can be learned from.
I'm just making it a distinction there, that if you have a look at the Islamic civilizations, they've more been the conquerors and pillagers rather than building things.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not saying I want Islam to come and take over, or I want to be part of it, but there are aspects to their culture and their strategy that that can be learned from, and that we ought to learn from.
Yeah, the distinction I make, I don't define my opposition to Islam by pointing out like their tactics and saying I don't like their tactics. To me, Islam is simply the religion of a foreign people, and that's why I oppose it. Yeah,
because you default to nation.
Yes,
as do I these days.
The counter jihad movement, they're right about Islam, but they're right for not necessarily the right. They're right, but their goals are not right. If that makes sense, that they're correct about Islam, but how they want to, because they're called the counter jihad movement, their idea of how to solve that solve societal's multicultural problem is lacking.
Yeah, well, as Dave rightly pointed out, that their mission seems to be to make everyone believe that the issue in England in particular is an issue of religious incompatibility and cultural incompatibility, whilst also ignoring the correlations between race or nation culture, and also pointing out that it's not just religion that's the issue, and in fact, the other cultural and religious groups that are part of this multicultural movement are just as, if not more, incompatible in a lot of ways. So yeah, they're not going the full 9 yards. They're not really taking the truth to its full conclusions, which is the full conclusion is nationalism, is the most tenable and moral way for society to organize itself.
Yeah. Piers Taylor has said in the chat, I'm glad somebody's tried to make this argument. What is it with nationalists cucking to Islam? We're not cucking to Islam either. Like we're saying, look, we oppose Islam. It's just that opposing Islam isn't enough.
Yeah. No, it's not. Because look at what we're fighting at the moment. It's look at what's brought the nation to our knees. It's not mass Islamic immigration, Islamic terrorism. It's a Chinese born virus.
Yeah, that's important.
Well, that's the most recent event that's brought us to our knees, but it's not the causal. It's not exploring the full causal chain. Sorry, Dave, I interrupted you.
That's fine.
You take it.
How it's all of a sudden it's the good immigrants. Like even just a few months ago, like you would talk to people and they say, "Oh, look, I don't have any problem with the Chinese, the Asians. They work hard. They like our values. The women are hot. Let's let them in. I don't have a problem with that. It's just the Muslims and the Africans who I don't like. But what we're seeing here is like when we think of whether it's another thing that we're right about with Chinese employees of Chinese corporations stripping shelves of medical supplies here in Australia.
Which was true. Remember how they used to say that was a racist rumor? Yep. That's another thing we were right about.
Yep,
right. They were saying that those busloads of Chinese going to supermarkets all over, we've seen it repeatedly on video now.
Yes, we were right. And both of those both of those instances are examples of Chinese nationals demonstrating their loyalty to China and not Australia. And it's red pilling Australians on race. It's going, hey, look, these people who we thought were here and respecting our values, they're actually still loyal to their home country.
Yeah. And so they should be. The loyalty part to their own people is fine. It's just when it becomes a parasitic element on, or a colonization attempt in another people's country, then it's a problem. And the other problem is the irreciprocity. Like I've been to China, and anyone who has interest in moving to China is going to find it's extremely you can't just rock up and become a permanent resident. It's extremely hard for a non-Chinese national to become permanent resident there, and you will never be a Chinese citizen unless you're Chinese. They are a nationalist state. And again, that there are aspects to China's government and culture that we can learn from. This is not a wholesale endorsement or cuckery. This is just saying you need to look at all the peoples of the world and the governments of the world and see what are they doing right, what are they doing wrong, what's irreciprocal here. And yeah, the irreciprocity is that Chinese people can come here and make a whole new life for themselves and, buy property, start businesses, send money back home, basically be dual citizens for all intents and purposes, with their priority loyalty being back to China. But we Australians can't go to China and do the same thing, at least nowhere near as easily.
And there are plenty in the Australian media and even in the Australian alternative media who defend China. And Dave Lee, who I've had on my Wilmsfront show many times. He, on his YouTube channel, has been warning Australia for years about how China, that they're using, subverting Australia to basically loot us, to take it all back to China, and then they'll move on to the next place. And he says that if you're not Chinese and defending them, then you're just seen as a useful idiot. You'll never be Chinese because you're white.
Yeah, they get it,
and it's true.
yeah.
It's true. There's no magic dirt, and there's no magic dirt, and arriving in another people's country does not make you a native. We will never be. I was saying today on my show, imagine if I looked it up. I can't remember the name of the particular tribe that's the native Aboriginal tribe to the Adelaide area, and that's where I was born. But imagine if I went around identifying as being a member of that Aboriginal tribe because I was born in the geographical region that they traditionally occupied. Everyone would think I'm insane, and people would be deeply offended by it. And yet, just because Chinese immigrants have children here, or take any foreign group, if they have a child in Australia, by virtue of magic dirt and paperwork, lo and behold, they've become Australian. So Australia is not allowed to be a national identity, which is, as in the race of people who are Australians, who are the descendants of the founders of Australia. Just like Americans are not allowed to see themselves as the posterity of the founding fathers, even though it's written in their big constitution that America was created for them, these British dissidents, and their posterity, the new Americans who founded this nation. But it's all been distorted and twisted. So if you're, and absolutely the same across Europe, the new Germans are all Arabs and Africans.
Oh, and the Turks as well.
Arabs and whatever group they've decided to bring in are the new Swedes, the new Germans, the new whatever, new Italians. And it's the ultimate message is that if you're a white European nation, you're not allowed to have a unique identity that's encoded in your blood. If you're any other group, you are. And it's perfectly okay for the Chinese to rightly say, we are Chinese and you are not. They're right and we're wrong. We're the idiots for letting this happen.
Have you guys have seen, I think most people in the chat would have seen as well, the racism map. And how you've got increasingly dark colors for the countries that are more racist, and the countries that are consistently more racist.
You'll have to send them to me.
Okay, the countries that are consistently more racist are India and China, I think, and you'll see it being spread by by people on the conservative side of politics. Thing is, I don't see that as a bad thing. Like what we're describing here is countries where the people understand that the people who are not them are not them. And that's simply all it is.
It's interesting that because Antifa, they normally just only believe that white people can be racist and fascist, but now they've actually turned their attention to India and Prime Minister Modi, because he's a
Indians are Aryans as well. So,
well, also because he's a neoliberal capitalist. Modi is wanting to open up the nation to investment to make sure that the slums continue to fall by the wayside and are replaced with a middle class. And because there's two groups they seem to love, the Antifa, the Muslims and the communists. And because India and China, they've always been in a mini Cold War. Of course, they're going to take the side of the communists. And Pakistan, which was meant to be an Indian Muslim state, of course, Islam being a conquering religion, there's a lot of them in India as well. And Modi is like, no, India was meant to be for the Hindus. And so that's two reasons that they hate the Indian government at the moment. And that's also how they justify opposing the Adani coal mine because it's our fascist government is shipping coal off to the Indian fascist government. So yes, the Indians they're included now with the white fascists.
You make a really good point there, Tim. The lefties do have their favoured so-called minorities. But the perfect example of that is that during the Cold War, the lefties loved the Russians. Now all the lefties hate them. There's just before it gets too long since we responded to it, Piers Taylor is actually he responded. It's an interesting response just to our thing about so-called cucking to Islam. So Piers has said, no, I was referring to nationalists frequently admiring aspects of Islam. Islam is a barbaric heresy. We are a Christian nation. Christian values are objectively better. It is something that I have noticed. Yes,
which is why I tried to correct you both before when you were because it can be misinterpreted, and there's a sort of the nationalist edgelords who are like, yeah, we want white Sharia.
Again, white Sharia is a meme, but like I think what we're
it's
talking about here,
it's not about Islam.
Yeah, what we're
it's about being as based as Islam is, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Is the aspect to admire about, and I said this before. I totally agree that Christianity is superior because it's the truth, right? I'm a Christian, but what Islam has as a massive cultural advantage and as a military, essentially a military advantage over Christianity, which has become a non-militant religion, even though it used to be a militant religion, is that Islam is a plan for conquest. It is a militant religion, and it's based. And it's totally intolerant of the out group, and it's absolutely preferential to the in group. And that's what we need to learn from. I'm not saying we need to adopt any of the precepts of their religious beliefs, just the strategy for at least survival. I'm not really into the conquest and expansion stuff. I'm an anti-colonialist. But at least their intolerance of the out group in order to maintain the survival and maintain a future for their people. They've got that covered.
Yeah. When you look at the Crusades, how did our forefathers successfully retake the Holy Land? Well, the Pope issued an edict saying that if you die in holy war against the infidel, you will go to heaven. They basically took the tactic that the Muslims had been using to spread their religion and
Christian Sharia.
Yeah. So it's about saying, okay, there's a difference between the religion and the tactics. There's a difference between the values and the tactics. If the tactics work, use the tactics. And for all intents and purposes, a few hundred years ago, Christian tactics were essentially the same as Muslim tactics. We are a different religion, but
for the record, I'm strongly opposed to twisting theology to political ends, but I don't think that we need to do what that particular pope did and those popes in those periods of time. I don't think we need to twist the theology and who Christ presents himself to be, to see that sometimes there's time to cleanse the temple. Sometimes you need to drive out the toxic elements who are in a holy place, and we need to see our nations and our tribes and our own genetic lines as holy things once again, and that we have a right to defend them.
That's a really interesting point, James. So, because you can make the case that Christendom is we face just as big an existential threat as Christendom did in the Christian ages back in around the 900s.
Far bigger. Far bigger.
But it's important. You're making a theological point here. Like, you don't need to twist the theology to that extent to provide the justification that we have to drive out the enemy.
I think it's inherent to scriptural Christianity. So anyway, that's a bit of a tangent. We don't need to head down, but like at least the survival strategy of the Islamic religion can be learned from. Is all I'm saying. And if you can't separate, if you can't look at things objectively and add aspects of these tribal behaviors to your portfolio of options and things to learn from and strategize with, then you may well be a moron. if it's just black and white, no, Islam bad, Christianity good. It's not that simple. You need to look at things through different layers of resolution.
Do you know that the toilet paper panic crisis is over? I'm not sure. I know that James, you don't go to the shops.
I don't use toilet paper,
but it's in abundance now at my supermarkets. How are you going, Dave?
I'm not fully convinced, and it's why I was asking James. No, not James. Joel last week. It's why I was sort of probing a little bit, because at the supermarkets that I see, yes, there's toilet paper on the shelves, but there isn't the variety of brands, and I'm seeing brands that I've never seen before on the shelves. So there's the supply is still stretched, and if you consider that, like, international supply lines have still been stretched, and there are still things that we need that we're not.
Oh yeah, they still
Australia.
there are still restrictions on and a shortage of pasta, rice. Well, they are foreign staples. So
I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about things that we get from overseas, like components for cars and trucks.
Oh yeah, that's still is a problem.
And things that we use to, like, lay bitumen, or like just to make sure that we have enough petrol in the country. Those sorts of things, like we can't take those things for granted. Like, I know we say that here in Australia we grow enough food to feed 3 Australias, but you still need the people to get out to physically get out to the land and pick the fruit, and to harvest the wheat. And, like, there's concerns that they're not actually going to get all the backpackers or
they're all going home. The backpackers now, or
they're
getting
there's going to be a massive economic reshuffling of the labor force. You know, people are going to end up in jobs they didn't imagine themselves in, but that's fine. You know, especially as things settle down, those jobs may become financially attractive enough again for everyday Australians to do them, rather than them being so cheap that they have to be farmed out to backpackers and illegal immigrants or whatever.
Yes. Actually, the ABC they've in an article and in some radio reports, they've said that Australians have traditionally shied away from working on farms. And it's like only since we've had loads and loads of immigrants coming in here and undercutting.
And everyone was told to a university to get a piece of paper that was you could become a lawyer, banker, financier. That was your ticket to greatness and a globalist lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our entire culture for, like, over a century was based on our prowess in rurally, you know, like as farmers and as drovers and as and all that sort of stuff.
We've got to take all of these sort of cosmopolitan hipster barista kids who've never worked a real job and are aspiring Instagram influencers or whatever, and just, like, say, hey guys, time to go get some fresh air, go and enjoy a life out in the countryside for 6 months, and here's a pay package and a little dusty cottage to live in, and you can, do something that's really useful. And it may, over time, shift the culture away from, young people seem to be really averse to traditional work, and it's part of the way in which we've become weak as a society.
Yes.
That we don't know how to be self-sufficient. You know, these kids have never built anything. They've never been camping in the bush. They've never left the city. They've never grown anything. They've never hunted. They've never been in a fight. You know, like these sort of real life experiences that boys especially used to have seem to be fading.
We're going to start a revolution.
Might be a time for a renaissance, a masculine renaissance for young city folks, young city boys. Get them out in the fields picking fruit. Dave is frozen on a very beautiful smile.
Well, you're frozen a few times as well, James.
Oh, have I?
Your Zoomer internet is supposed to be better than the Skype one. People were a bit, because they heard the news about Zoom, didn't like us moving over. But I told them, do you know who Skype is owned by? Do you know?
Microsoft.
Yes.
Yes,
And
it's Mark of the Beast.
yeah, whose greatest friend after Xi Jinping?
The thing is, you don't have to worry about security if you share all your outlandish political ideas publicly on YouTube anyway. Like, I don't say anything
that's what I was
really
saying.
private that I wouldn't say on YouTube. I don't harbor any secret views or plans. I'm an open book. You know, people can AMA me.
Yeah, come on over to Entropy and give us some questions, because I'm putting the link in. And
Tim, I see you're really spoiling for war with Dave tonight. You know, you've insulted him 3 times, and now you've raised a poll to find out whether Unshackled or XYZ were right first. So
I thought Unshackled.
do you guys need to have like a little scissors paper rock war or something on Zoom to settle this?
I keep saying it's not about me.
Back in our what was that frenemies days, what was that the thing you used to say? XYZ rules, Unshackled rules.
We never said that.
You did.
No, we didn't.
Somebody said it.
So childish.
If you are still short of toilet paper, a book that will be remaindered and be recycled into toilet paper is.
Tim, you get the you get the prize for best segue of the night. That's magnificent. Please continue.
Malcolm Turnbull's tome, a bigger picture, which he actually wanted to release last year, but he had to rewrite it because the coalition won the election. So it's due for release in the next week, and he dumps on Scott Morrison, Peter Dutton, Matthias Cormann, Greg Hunt, Peter Credlin, Tony Abbott. But the biggest, I would say, revelation, or should we say scandal, is that while he was a Liberal frontbencher, he brokered a financial deal to launch the Guardian Australia. He got Graham Wood. He's the guy that runs What If, that travel website. He's the Greens' biggest single donor. He previously bankrolled Graham Wood, the Global Mail venture, but Turnbull contacted the Guardian Trust in the UK, and because he wanted to put his own money, Malcolm Turnbull, 20 million to starting the Guardian Australia, but it wouldn't be a good look since he was a politician. So he got Graham Wood to fold the Global Mail and launch Guardian Australia, and Turnbull handpicked the editor, Lenore Taylor of Guardian Australia, and the political editor, Catherine Murphy, or as Turnbull calls her, Murpharoo.
So basically, Turnbull is admitting that he was a rat the entire time.
This was back in 2012. He became Prime Minister in 2015, and this has been kept secret for 8 years.
That's amazing. It's because there must have been people who knew this, but this is a great example of how our media establishment traitors who are in on it as well and should be held just as accountable, because there must have been quite a few people who knew this and they kept that a secret.
Yeah, and isn't it the Guardian is part of the...
Sorry, Tim. Would Liberal voters have voted...
Liberal MPs.
But the people who vote for the Liberal Party, if they'd known that Malcolm Turnbull was involved with that, would they have stood for that? And the MPs.
Because they didn't know that he had done this when they voted for him to replace Tony Abbott. And Fiona Scott, who she is widely thought to vote for Malcolm Turnbull over Tony Abbott in that 2015 leadership spill. I was expecting her to say, oh, well, this wasn't disclosed to me at the time. She said Malcolm Turnbull, he was communications minister under Tony Abbott.
Mr. Internet.
Yeah, and he's launching he's brokering. He's basically the shadowy. And there was a really good comment by one of the Nationalist accounts on Twitter that he's basically been revealed to be our own George Soros because his family's investment in renewables, his son Alex bankrolling all of those blue-green liberal independents.
Yeah, and Turnbull is the same nationality as Soros as well.
Hungarian.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Dave's gone. Dave's not here, man. Well, look, if anyone, it just amazes me that anyone is surprised that Turnbull was a total rat. You know, like it seemed plainly obvious from the start. None of this stuff surprises me when I hear about corruption and the fiddling that goes on and the amount. There are very, very, very few, if any, politicians in Australia, anywhere in the democratic system, who aren't total corrupt hacks and traitors, in every way, and parasites. They're a parasitic class of people, the politicians.
And
there are a couple of exceptions. There are people who I think are real battlers, really trying to make good of a very evil system. But most of them, especially the successful ones that come from money and all the backroom dealings to get into their positions, where they just come out of nowhere, and you're expected to put your faith in them as an everyday Australian. They're elitists. They're people of another. They're a ruling aristocratic class of totally amoral scoundrels who are profiteering from the tax slavery of working Australians. And I can't wait to see them all gone.
And for the readers of the Guardian, they think that it's this noble, independent journalistic venture, and they have Antifa supporters on staff as writers, Jeff Sparrow and Jason Wilson. And it's now been revealed that to bring the Guardian to Australia, a deal was brokered between two privileged Australian millionaires. And let's not forget the other left-wing publication, the Saturday paper, which also operates Black Ink Books, which publishes Benjamin Law and David Marr's book. That's bankrolled by businessman Maury Schwartz. So basically, communism publications in Australia are being bankrolled by millionaire elites.
Well, they're in good company. Marx basically chewed up the money of his rich dad. And I think even Rousseau followed a similar kind of path. So it seems to be the regular pattern for communists. They like other people's money.
But I love Lenore Taylor saying that, even though we thank Turnbull for basically anointing us we'd all like a millionaire prime minister to give us make us in charge of a major news publication. But she's like, we did no special favors for him. We still scrutinized him. But I just want to do another screen capture here, because this is sharing the two Guardian headlines from today, which are quite telling. So this is what the Guardian went with today. This is Amanda Mead. Malcolm Turnbull News Corp is like a political party with the Murdochs encouraging intolerance. In a new book, the former Australian PM accuses the company of helping to run the country through a differential leaders of Tony Abbott. So immediate deflection there onto themselves, to their rival News Corp. And this is from Catherine Murphy herself. Scott is a control freak. What Malcolm Turnbull's new book tells us about his relationship with Morrison. Catherine Murphy, political editor, Murpharoo.
Such a fucking rat. Look at him.
No honor amongst thieves, huh?
Mm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I like ScoMo more than most of the prime ministers we've had in recent history. I must say he's grown on me. And but yeah, I mean, I don't trust any of them as far as I could throw them.
But yeah, it's funny that it's our right to know what they want to tell us. Shouldn't we have a right to know that 8 years ago, Malcolm Turnbull, who still had
Yeah,
admissions to Prime Minister, helped broker this outlet?
we should have known. We absolutely, yeah. That's a betrayal, and it's a betrayal by our media.
And obviously, deliberately covered up, because everyone knows that if it came out, we'd see it as a betrayal. So
yeah, it's groundbreaking.
Sneaky bastards.
It's absolutely groundbreaking. Yeah. Harry earlier in the chat, I think he was sort of it sort of harks back to what we were talking about maybe 10 minutes ago. Like, he's asking, like, will Australia ever be the same after coronavirus?
I hope not.
It's always my fear that somehow, like, in 6 months' time, we'll go back to going, oh, hey, remember when the whole country was locked down, and then everybody will be back to, like, racing around like headless chooks, driving all over the city, watching degeneracy every night on television. That's actually my greatest fear.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, Dave. I don't think. I think this is the calm before the storm, to be honest. And that's not a QAnon reference, although that's, I suppose, a possibility too. But no, I think the financial fallout that is going to occur, most people are not prepared for.
Yes.
Just psychologically not prepared for. We're probably headed towards a Great Depression type scenario, and that's going to hurt a lot more than what we're currently experiencing.
James Boom has asked on Entropy, what do you think the real unemployment figures are? Real bad up far north Queensland.
Oh, I know the unemployment figures came out today, and they were something like 5.5, but they even acknowledged, look, it's from the first half of the month, so, like, they understand that the real employment number is going to be much higher. Like, they're predicting 10%.
And apparently, it's growing the US unemployment rate to nearly 25 million now.
Yeah.
And something like 6 million Australians are already on JobKeeper or JobSeeker.
Yeah, it's going to keep going. We're going to really milk the teat dry, and there's not going to be
get those turn the toilet paper factories into money printing factories.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, get your wheelbarrows ready if you want to go out for a trolley of. It was that I think it was it Jefferson who said something during a similar event historically in America, talked about a barrow of money not being enough to afford a barrow of goods. The purchasing power of our dollar has already, like that figure I told you before about how £5,000 in 1975 would get you, I think it's something like £42,000 sterling today. 750% decrease or change in the value of money. The purchasing power of the dollar's increasingly diminishing. Why? Because inflation has been constant. They're constantly inflating the supply. And where is the money coming from for these massive bailouts that they're going to give these companies that are too big to fail? These massive bailouts that they're throwing into the welfare system that people are going to take. People aren't going to act in good conscience for the country if there's free money on offer. If they can get it, they're going to get it. People are going to act out of a rational self-interest for survival. So the whole system is going to get bled dry, or they're going to cut it off because they're worried that it's going to get bled dry, and then you're going to have a whole lot of unemployed, hungry people who can't pay rent, and a whole lot of disgruntled landlords who say enough is enough. The government either needs to pay their rent for them, or we're kicking them out. Then we've got a major social upheaval. So, I don't think things are going to get better for a long time. I think we're going to go through a really dark period.
Yeah, a common causal factor for both depressions and revolutions is debt. When debt becomes unmanageable, that's when
And
you get change.
cronyism as well, because there is still repeated calls for the government to bail out Virgin Airlines.
Yeah, and they will. You know they will.
Even though it's a
Fucking traitors.
foreign
Yeah,
airline,
yeah, yeah.
because it's like,
They,
we can't have one airline, so we need to give corporate welfare to another.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's it's not gonna go well. But
And
the debt thing, the way out of it potentially, and I just don't think we have any leaders who are ballsy enough to do it. But the way out of it is a debt jubilee. You know, is a total forgiveness of all debt. But that requires the basically the dismantling of the banks, and the banks are in charge here. The banks run the show. The international global system is the master, and we are the slaves. And it would take a leader in each country to step between the people and the bank and say, "This far, no further. You get out, and all debt is forgiven." And then we might actually have a major economic boom, and it might be a really marvelous time. But I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen. It might happen in a few places, but I don't think it's going to happen in Australia. I think our leaders are way too cucked.
Again, James, you're hitting nails, heads, all that. We can have all the racial consciousness awareness being raised by what's going on due to coronavirus here in Australia and across the West. But if we don't do something about central banking and usury, then we're going to have to fight the same fight in another 50 years' time, another 75 years' time.
Over and over.
Yeah. If you want to really reset the system, ditch the banks, ditch usury, because the whole point of interest is that it's not supposed to be paid off. If it gets paid off, then that's deflationary, and that they don't want that. So
debt makes the world go round right now, and it's gonna see us all put in an early grave if it's allowed to continue. So we need a total shutdown of the financial system, which will hurt for a short time, but it'll be glorious after that.
In the chat tonight, do you think these are all real Antifa accounts or just various character actors?
It could be anything.
I don't know anymore. I can't tell anymore from the Uncuckables, from the people who follow you guys.
It's probably all the Senator Slayer, yeah?
Well, that's the thing about YouTube. Like, they don't. If you create a false identity on Facebook, they'll get you eventually. But YouTube, you can create endless channels with no content, just to like go in live chats.
This Antifa New South Wales character, you know, I never thought I'd see the day when I'd agree with one of the comments. They wrote, Branson is a billionaire that wants taxpayers' money. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to capitalism. I mean,
come over to the dark side, Antifa. Yeah.
I mean, this is why I'm not a raging capitalist anymore either. It's two sides, capitalism, communism, two sides of the same evil coin. It's the money system that's the problem.
I hope that he or she or they is not fooled by the ANZ or the Qantas rainbow coloured logo.
Yeah, that's it. ANZ. I am, as I was saying on Tuesday night, I actually I closed my account with them when they went after Israel Folau's wife. Glad I did.
Good one, man.
Yeah. They've closed the account of the guy that we were chatting with the other night. They're basically letting politics get in the way of business. It's crazy.
Their ads, their social programming ads.
My favorite ad of all time. Yeah?
What the fuck does this have to do with banking? Are you going to look after my money or not? But then, you know, when you think about it and you look at history, it has everything to do with banking because it's all about social control.
I've still got it on file.
Yes.
You two won't be able to hear it, but should I just play it again for the hell of it?
Oh, please do.
Sure.
As I said in my article I wrote about it, it's the greatest ad of all time.
And it wasn't it was supposed to be like one of, like, because they're launching, what is it, to replace all the hate speech with love speech or love words.
Yeah. love speech. Yeah.
Yeah, but the ad itself, because it contained hate speech, it was triggering.
Well, their key should have been their cue should have been a guy like David loves the ad, and the people that we're supposed to be standing up for hate it.
Here we.
Yeah.
We dropped the ball.
Here we go.
Yeah, your face just said it all there, Jake.
I got it.
So tell me what your name is.
My name is
Faggot.
Dyke. Lezo.
Faggot.
Faggot was my whole childhood. Poof.
Man-hater.
My name is Tranny.
You fag.
Very.
Freak.
At least twice a week.
Carpet muncher.
Dirty.
Limp-wristed.
Ladyboy.
Confused.
A lot of people tend to say that
You just haven't met the right
Man yet.
Don't be so feminine.
People say that I don't look gay.
What are you?
I'm not sure what you are, but I effing hate it.
Poofter.
Pansy.
frigid.
Queer.
Gross.
Just a phase. Lesbo.
She-male.
Sissy.
Sick.
There we go. Do you know what causes also distress? Banks ripping people off.
Yep.
Yeah. I think we could probably all unite, us and all of these self-proclaimed faggots could join together in our opposition to the banks. Perhaps that could be the revolution that's coming, as we put our cultural and social differences aside, ready to sort out at another time, and we join together in defeating the global financial system, which is raping us all and has enslaved us and will further enslave our children and our children's children. Not theirs, because they probably won't have children, but yeah, we've got to do something about this. It is the most clear and present danger to all of us. So yeah, maybe we can team up with our leftist enemies in a common hatred for the people destroying us.
But they've been so easily fooled. That's the thing. I mean, the fact that some of the most prominent Antifa bloggers now support, they want more money for ASIO to spy on all of us. And there was an interesting Gab post by Blair Cottrell tonight. How come we've got the total police state and surveillance state now, yet the civil libertarian left, they're basically silent? And I replied to him saying it's because they believe that they're destroying the economy, business, and capitalism, and so therefore that they're willing to grant the state this unlimited power, and they justify it to themselves that they're saving lives, even though their local cafes are serving soy lattes, cappuccinos, and smashed ava are all closed, and they can't go to their degenerate art shows. Like, that just shows how just destroying the West and standard of living, that trumps everything else, including their vices.
What was the question?
So what you're saying is that they're celebrating the fall of the system in the same way that we might be.
No, but they want there to be nothing. They basically want us to go back to primitive. Like,
who's the they? Are we talking about Blair or the police or someone else?
No, we're talking about the left, the cultural Marxist Antifa type. They, like, we want to make it great again. They believe that nothing was ever great. That's their shtick. Because
burn it. I'll let it burn. They just want to see it all burn down and be replaced with what? A multicultural communist utopia?
Worshipping the earth worship. This is why they love the climate change religion so much.
Oh, yeah, the Extinction Rebellion cult. Look, if you're really worried about human impact on the world, then just start with yourself. Look at the man in the mirror. or the whatever you see.
They're never. They just don't have the guts to see their convictions all the way through, do they?
Yeah, well, I mean that's a common trait, isn't it, of the communist mindset? Is make others pay for the things that we want. So, yeah, I don't know.
They've
I don't think any alliance with the left will last very long if it does. But I would just be happy to see either way the whole global financial system collapse and the banks be gone and kind of have an opportunity for fresh options.
You're in a libertarian in there, James. Outreach to the left.
Well, you've also...
I just want to see the bigger enemy destroyed. I don't have any love for the left. I just think we may be able to appeal.
Well, you better watch
their self-interest as well.
You better watch that. If you did decide to pursue that, you better.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to pursue outreach to the left.
Because watch out for the stab in the back.
I have no interest in. I'm just putting out there ideas. I'm not going to be participating in any leftist outreach.
Let's continue the thought experiment, because when you consider the biology of epigenetic change, the idea that when the environment changes, all of those R's become K's.
Oh yeah, man! Coronavirus has proven to be a really great cure for lesbianism.
Yes.
What has?
Coronavirus.
I can
not the actual virus, just the social conditions.
I can openly state 100% that I've had lesbians throwing themselves at me for the last 3 months. It's just every day I'm just fighting them off with a cricket bat. So, yeah.
Wait, that's not social distancing, Dave.
The lesbians come.
You need a golf club. It's a bit longer.
Yeah, they come up to me all the time, and they're like, "Hey, David, do you want to break social distancing regulations?" But all seriousness aside, I think when you have a collapse of the financial system, which is entirely likely, you'll have a lot of people reassessing what's important and how they're actually going to survive. We're seeing the signs of it already, like with the baby formula biffo, which happened the other day, where you saw in Australia.
I didn't see that one. What was that?
Okay, there was in a supermarket. There were two Chinese people, a man and a woman, and it said that they were repeatedly going into the store and always buying 2 cans each. And then they would go back and they would buy more and more, and eventually, like an
hacking
Aussie guy,
the system.
Yeah, and so an Aussie guy went up to them and openly said to them, "Put it back." And there was a confrontation, and they got in each other's faces, and security came along and they took the 2 Chinese people away. So I make the argument all the time. Virtue signaling is like a slow motion suicide. It means that your kids or your grandkids will grow up as the only white kid in the swimming pool. Virtue signaling during a pandemic means that your kids might die next week. And so people are being forced to just
drop the bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Reality bites, doesn't it?
Yeah. and so that's what's happening to ordinary Australians, like who are not lefties. And so then you're going to have lefties coming over to where the ordinary Australians were. You're just going to have that whole Overton window shift.
Yeah, well, I saw a comment early on from one of the alleged Antifa folks who were watching, and they were sort of laughing and saying, "Hey, we're 500 to 1 compared to you guys." Now, I don't know if this is a legit Antifa member or not, but that proposition, that belief that there are many more of them, than people on our side is not going to be true for much longer. When average, everyday, apolitical Australians have had jack of the situation. Like when people revert to the survival instinct, the truth kicks in, and all the delusional lefty activists are going to be severely outnumbered, I think, by just ordinary Australians who are going to revert to their tribe, their own people. This is what happens under enough pressure. People revert to the tribe, their own tribe, that is.
Apparently, Lefty's Best wants to come on air right now and debate us.
No, who the fuck are you?
If they do want to come on and debate us, then we can strike a few suspects off the list.
Bring me on your poxy program. This person says, "Why aren't you hey, actually, I have the ability to block them. I think. Oh no, I'm not logged into the right account. Why don't you just ban these people? You don't get to come on a show after calling it Poxy. No, fuck off.
These people, they normally get eaten alive by our existing audience, and then they run off triggered. Because there was one, I can't remember what her name was.
Do.
Yeah, she was here for a couple of weeks, and she just got dumped on.
Oh well, good riddance.
Yeah, because it's not a safe space for them. You can't just write your comment and then go away.
It's amazing how many gammas, think they're entitled to a debate. Debate me. No, you're nobody to me. I don't give a damn what you think. Go away.
Yeah, you never amplify or let a nobody affect you, because if they were really somebody, they'd let you know.
Well, they try. They certainly try.
Oh yeah. They make a good case that they're somebody. Hey, let me Google you. I can't find any information about you.
One of my favorite Confederate generals, I'm pretty sure it was Nathan Bedford Forrest. One of my favorite stories, I'm pretty sure it's about this guy. I can't be 100% certain. There came a point during a battle where him and his troops, they were surrounded. And so he said, I've got the enemy just where I want them. And he ordered his men to charge in every direction. And they broke out and they won the battle.
Nice.
That's my comment.
Yeah. The confidence of leadership and adaptability to the situation. Love it.
Shall we begin to wrap it up?
Sure.
There is...
It's a bit of a process, yep. We better get it started.
Although there's no, you said beforehand, no Patriarch Hour after this.
No, Noah's unwell, unfortunately. So yeah, we're skipping Patriarch Hour this week, and we'll be back next Thursday night after Uncuckables at 10:30. But I'll be on tomorrow at my new regular time in Australia, 1 p.m. Sydney Melbourne time, with special guest David Hiscox.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
And you and I, Dave, we're going to be permanent co-hosts on every Uncuckables show now, which is now every Tuesday and Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time, right here on YouTube.
Yeah.
Did you get that memo, Dave?
He did.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. At least as long as the lockdown goes, I can definitely make the time.
Yeah, that's it. All plans may change if suddenly the whole economy kicks back into normal, but I wouldn't bet on it. I saw one of those automated Twitter news things come up this evening saying that there's no signs that anything's going to change for the next 4 weeks as far as lockdown laws go. They'll just repeat that every 4 weeks till we die.
Yeah. There's a segue to put in right at the end. Do you reckon lockdown will ever finish?
No, stay in your pods, eat your bugs.
Oh, don't forget to download the app as well.
Download the app.
Yeah, the app, the coronavirus tracing
that
app.
Tracks you.
Yeah. So
oh yeah.
It's voluntary at the time, so don't you
For
want
now.
to? Oh, hang on. I've got this. I almost forgot about it. I know that some people. Did I download it? Oh yes, I did.
I told you wrapping up a show was a process.
Yeah, this is what the AFP put last night. I hate being stuck inside because of coronavirus. This is what somebody says. Whinging, boring, selfish. I have sworn an oath of solitude to protect mankind. Heroic makes it sound like you have an impressive vocabulary, more time to play Animal Crossing. So that's what the Australian Federal Police, it's like, turn around that attitude. Make it seem like you're saving mankind. Don't be a whinger because you're under house arrest.
It would have been a much better post if they'd used the Virgin and Chad meme instead. You know, Chad, Virgin, I hate being stuck inside because of coronavirus. Whingy, boring, selfish. Chad, I've sworn an oath of solid. You know, like it's perfectly. All the text there is perfect for the Virgin Chad meme, but they didn't use it. Come on, AFP. Haven't you learned anything from watching Uncuckables every week? Learn to meme.
It's almost as good as the New South Wales Police remix of all the single ladies about, don't have sex with a drunk woman and she regrets it, then you'll be charged with rape.
Yeah, no, it's better than that. That was horrible. I remember seeing that poster up in my local shopping establishment and just being absolutely shocked at the one-sidedness of it. Yeah, because they were both specifically referred to as Jake was drunk, Anita was drunk, they had sex, she regretted it, he raped her. Whoa, that's the clown world we live in. It's the world we live in.
And we're also
just don't have sex with women that you're not married to. That's the best approach.
Or just don't risk it at all.
No, MGTOW's bullshit.
We're also, since you're phoning in more, Dave, and you're managing the Boomer Tech, we're planning to dip into the entropy, Uncuckables entropy fund to get you a better mic setup.
Mic.
Yeah, because everyone says even though you found your voice, you're still from home. The internet won't carry your voice or your. This should actually be a makeover show on Rational Rise TV, from Boomer to Zoomer Tech.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Forget Queer Eye for the straight guy.
We'll call it Zoomer Eye for the Boomer guy.
Yeah, get a whole bunch of Zoomers to teach a Boomer all the tech.
Yeah, except Dave's a fake Boomer.
Oh no! You would be shocked at just how technologically illiterate he is. Like, the more I've known, it's just like.
Oh, here we go. Keep going.
Like if you were,
don't stop.
If you were in the mainstream
we finally
media in the current year, you'd still be at press conferences with your notebook and your tape recorder.
Yes.
Old school, man.
Yeah,
that's it.
Journalism,
old school journalism. Yeah,
and you wouldn't have like a press like lanyard. You'd still have the hat with the press thing on it.
I want the hat. I need the hat.
With the thing sticking out the press.
This is a genuinely true story. Watching the original Superman from the 1970s with Christopher Reeve in it. And that was one of the things that's kind of piqued my interest in becoming a journalist. Dead set serious.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah.
The Chad journalist.
That guy who's like, everybody get out of my office,
yeah. Wow, that's my kind of gig.
Yeah.
I just want to be in charge of something so I can yell at people.
there are ways.
It's true. Well, it's been fun, guys.
Yeah, it's always fun, and our audience, they've enjoyed it as well, including the people who said that they were New South Wales Antifa, the White Rose Society, every other Antifa group that there is.
Well, this is the thing: is if they really are 500 to 1 compared to us, why didn't they bring more people? There's not that many people watching. They could bring a bigger crowd. I'd love to see 500 Antifa in the chats, because it would be like our people would be like Leonidas and the 300. It'd be excellent.
Yeah, I mean,
we can commentate while they destroy them.
You've all got nothing to do. Like, there's no protest going on. There's nothing you can superglue yourself to.
Back to the keyboard.
Well, you had the great line the other day, Tim, that they're all Extinction Rebellionists supergluing themselves to the houses.
Oh, some of them might be superglued down their pants.
I don't get it. I'm sorry.
It's a crass joke.
A what? A what joke?
Crass joke.
I still don't get it.
Crass.
Oh, crass. Right. Sorry, I don't speak Tim very fluently.
James, you've bashed yourself in the head to get all of the smut and degeneracy out of it.
Are we back to the hammer metaphor again, or what have I done to my head?
You've smashed all your knowledge about degenerate acts and thoughts.
Where did I do this?
You must have done it because you didn't get that reference.
Oh, right. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, right. I'm clean. Yes. Dave, can you do a more active job of translating for me? Yeah, I get it. Yes, I have a very clean mind, a very clean and pure mind, very pious. Yes, indeed.
Can we go now?
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Tomorrow, 1 p.m. tomorrow on the James Fox Higgins show and Rational Rise TV channel. And Dave will be joining me. So we can roast Tim when he's not there.
I'll demand. I'll be like West is best, and I demand you put me on for a right of reply.
I would for you, Tim. I would for you.
And
all right.
At 6 p.m. On Friday evening, of course, Trad Tasman talk on the Unshackled's YouTube channel, because even though New Zealand, the lockdown lovies, as I've just decided to call them, they're all praising Jacinta as a strong female leader by shutting down the entire economy completely, even though they've got more coronavirus cases now per capita than Australia.
Gun thief, baby murderer.
Yes,
gun thief,
everything.
Baby murderer.
Triggered feminist.
Baby murderer.
Good night.
Good night.
The Uncuckables.